And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch closely during times of transition, and any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk, and I am not willing to do that. With that in mind, Mr. Hegseth, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense. We already know that you've only led the largest a 200-person organization. How can we ask these warriors to train and perform the absolute highest standards when you are asking us to lower the standards to make you the Secretary of Defense simply because you are buddies with our president-elect? And by the way, he has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I'm not quite sure he's the kind of CEO you want to refer to as a successful businessman.
What's up, everybody? Guys, you have got to see this. We are breaking down what might be the most devastating popcorn-worthy reality check ever broadcast live from Capitol Hill. The room went absolutely dead silent, and you could literally feel every single camera lens in the room lock in. Pete Hegseth strolled into that Senate chair, entirely convinced that his slick Fox News persona and a VIP loyalty badge from Donald Trump were going to score him a quick rubber stamp approval. Instead, he walked right into an absolute buzzsaw named Senator Tammy Duckworth, a woman who has actually bled for this country. We are watching a guy realize in real time that his cozy TV script means absolutely nothing when you're interviewing for control of the largest military machine on Earth. Hit that like button and stay right here, because the establishment is getting exposed, the real heroes are stepping up to protect our troops, and this masterclass in accountability is just getting started.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also Secretary Mattis had to have this waiver as well. Mr. Hegseth, this hearing is about whether you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense, and one of the qualifications, to answer my colleague's question, is to actually win the votes of every member of this committee and to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you need to convince us that you're worthy of that vote, because the people of the state of Illinois voted for me to be their senator so that I could cast that vote when it comes to picking who is going to be the next Secretary of Defense. This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat, and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch closely during times of transition, and any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk, and I am not willing to do that. With that in mind, Mr. Hegseth, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense. We already know that you've only led the largest a 200-person organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after you left, they had to bring in a forensic accountant to figure out what went wrong, and that the largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion. You know, that is about 51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget of $825 billion. $16 million is 51,568 times smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegseth, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization, yes or no? I don't want a long answer, yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no, did you lead an audit?
Stated,
yes or no?
Completely
what are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes
part of my leadership of these organizations has been misrepresented.
I will take that as a no. What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighters. Look, the Secretary of Defense is required to make quick decisions every single day. that, well, with high-level information that's being provided for them. A Secretary of Defense has to have breadth and depth of knowledge. Right now, I am concerned that you have neither. Mr. Hegseth, what is the highest level of international negotiations that you have engaged in, that you have led in? Because the Secretary of Defense does lead international security negotiations. There are three main ones that the Secretary of Defense leads and signs. Can you name at least one of them?
Could you repeat the question, Senator?
Sure. What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other than serving in the military. So my job has been to
no. The answer is no. Can you name one of the three main ones that the Secretary of Defense
You're talking about defense
signs?
arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching about Status of Forces Agreements.
But you don't remember to
Afghanistan.
mention it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth. You're not qualified. You talk about repairing our defense industrial complex. You're not qualified to that. You could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, and trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen, Mr. Hegseth, we ask our troops to go into harm's way all the time. We ask them to go into harm's way. And this behind me is a copy of the Soldier's Creed, a copy that usually hangs over my desk here in the Senate, and you should be familiar with it. It's the same copy that hung over my desk at Walter Reed every single day that I woke up and fought my way back because I wanted to go back and serve next to my buddies who'd saved my life. This same copy, these words are repeated over and over and over again. And let me read out two things to you, two sentences. I will always place the mission first, and I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior task. Mr. Hegseth, our troops follow these words every single day, and they man up and they pack their rucksacks and they go to war. And they deserve a leader who can lead them, not a leader who wants to lower the standards for himself or raising the standards for other people. And by the way, our troops already meet the standards. We ask troops to man that ship, fight that fire, fly that helicopter until their very last breath. And they do that every single day. They cannot be led by someone who's not competent to do the job. How can we ask these warriors to train and perform the absolute highest standards when you are asking us to lower the standards to make you the Secretary of Defense simply because you are buddies with our president-elect? And by the way, he has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I'm not quite sure he's the kind of CEO you want to refer to as a successful businessman. Let me make it clear. You can't seem to grasp that there is no U.S. military as we know it without the incredible women that we serve. Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense. You say you care about keeping our armed forces strong and that you like that our armed forces are meritocracy, then let's not lower the standards for you. You, sir, are a no-go at this station.
Watch as Senator Tammy Duckworth steps up to dismantle the nominee piece by piece, demanding that Pete Hegseth prove his readiness to lead the Department of Defense, and warning that dangerously unprepared leadership puts the entire nation at risk. When he was relentlessly challenged on his tiny leadership scope, a botched budget, and zero audit experience with Duckworth, bluntly demanding a simple yes/no answer on leading audits, and mocking his lack of accounting credentials, he completely unraveled, failing to name a single ASEAN nation, member count, or major international security agreement, a viral train wreck highlighted by time. Pointing straight to the framed copy of the Soldier's Creed, resting on her desk, the exact words that hung above her bed during her grueling recovery at Walter Reed after her helicopter was shot down. Duckworth drove home the raw stakes, outlined in her U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth official press release, asking how we can demand our warriors train to the absolute highest standard if we confirm a leader asking to lower those bars just for political favors. For a complete breakdown of how this nominee floundered on basic 101 defense knowledge, proving once and for all that when someone lacks the credentials and tries to lecture about a merit-based military while totally unequipped for the job, the troops see right through the facade.
Donald Trump's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth isn't working out all that well. And it started right at the beginning. Right after he was sworn in, there was the mid-air collision of a passenger jet and an Army helicopter in Washington, D.C., despite the strict and solemn rules of the Defense Department that say no information about deceased service members can be made public until 24 hours after the next of kin has been informed. Pete Hegseth, nevertheless, blurted out to the public the ranks of the 3 helicopter crew members who had just been killed in the crash. Hegseth also blurted out that the crew members had been performing a training flight on a, quote, continuity of government mission. Mr. Hegseth, quote, was later told that he should not have publicly disclosed that it was a continuity of government mission, which involves U.S. officials and military forces practicing how the government would react in the event of an emergency. Just a couple of weeks later, Mr. Hegseth took his first big international trip as defense secretary, went to a big NATO meeting in Europe, and he began the trip by just totally flummoxing not only our allies, but also a lot of Washington, when he again just blurted out that any peace deal in the Russia-Ukraine war would have to include Ukraine giving up lots of its territory and abandoning its bid to join NATO. That caused major blowback for obvious reasons. He was just giving away Ukraine's major bargaining chips even before negotiations had started. When that blowback made its way to him, Pete Hegseth sort of angrily asserted that he had basically been the victim of his own comments.
As it pertains to NATO membership not being realistic outcome for negotiations, that's something that was stated as part of my remarks here, as part of a coordination with how we're executing these ongoing negotiations.
That's something that was stated as part of my remarks here. I don't know who stated it, but it was part of my remarks. I did not state it. It was something that was stated by something inside my mouth in my remarks time. It's very offensive to me as well. Now we're all living through Pete Hegseth's latest and greatest.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Right,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's it. The NSC said it was authentic.
Nobody's texting war plans.
I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what we're directing, and I'm really proud of what we accomplished. Nobody's texting war plans. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning.
Nobody's texting war plans. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what war plans look like. War plans, I see them all the time. I eat war plans for breakfast. There were no war plans. What do you mean? I would know if there were war. Meanwhile, headline, here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic magazine today releasing the entirety of the Signal message chain that he was somehow inexplicably added to, in which top Trump administration officials texted in detail about forthcoming airstrikes in Yemen. And despite Pete Hegseth and other officials in the chat saying there was no classified information and definitely no war plans, here is Pete Hegseth texting on a private messaging app to a group including a reporter, times and weapons and attack sequences about 2 hours before the first bombs exploded. Senator Tammy Duckworth, an Army helicopter pilot who lost both legs in combat. She now serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee. She had this to say today in response. This is an official statement released by her Senate office. I will warn you, it contains a thinly veiled swear. The statement says, quote, Pete Hegseth is a effing liar. This is so clearly classified info he recklessly leaked that could have gotten our pilots killed. He needs to resign in disgrace immediately. Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Senator, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me on, Rachel. It's such an important issue that you're covering.
We first learned about this about midday on Monday. It's now Wednesday night. We have learned more over the last couple of days about what happened in this group text about these forthcoming strikes. This is a very strong reaction that you have had to it. It's not only profane, it is it's mad. You're angry here. Can you explain your reaction to it and why you think Secretary Hegseth should resign?
I think he should resign because he put those pilots in danger. If you look at the text chain, that's my response was immediately after I read the actual text chain that showed him putting up on this unsecured platform, the drones are going to strike. And then he put down exactly how long it was going to be until the F-18s were going to be over the target area. If anybody had compromised that chain, those pilots could have been in danger. And that's why I was so upset. And I used my Army language in that text because he is the guy that's leading the military, and he put those pilots in direct danger. And by the way, if I were our allies, if I were the UK or any of our allies, I would think twice about sharing intelligence with us in the future, because we've shown that our Secretary of Defense, our national intelligence community, does not know how to safeguard classified information.
Well, let me ask you about the classified portion of this. Obviously, there's potential criminal liability here, whether or not this was classified information. But we've also now had these blunt assertions from the president, from other White House officials, from Mr. Hegseth, saying that there was nothing that was classified or that could be construed as classified information in the text. We know what Mr. Goldberg has published. We know that the NSC says that they've verified that this was the actual text chain. Does it seem to you that this is classified information?
It absolutely is. Any type of targeting information, sequencing of the attack, that's automatically classified. And that's why I called him a liar, because he's been saying there was no classified information. And then this text chain gets published and we see clearly that it is classified information and that it directly put those pilots in danger.
Once all of those people on that text chain, and there were 18 or 19 people or something on it, once all of those people started seeing the type of information that was circulating, again, on a commercial app, a non-government device or non-government system, certainly not a classified information system, what kind of responsibility did they all have? Because I'm struck here by Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, having started this text chain and having apparently added the reporter to it. I'm struck by the fact that Mr. Hegseth made the decisions that he made to post what he did to this chain. I'm struck by the fact that the CIA director posted the name of an active intelligence officer. But I'm also thinking about Stephen Miller in the White House, and Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, and all of these other, the Secretary of Treasury was on this for some reason. All of these people, once they realized the type of information that was on this chain, if they were responsible with that type of information, what should they have done? And who do you think is most culpable in terms of their behavior here?
Well, that's just why I say they should all lose their jobs, because they needed to have spoken up. As soon as he put that information on there and posted the information about the sequencing, what the strike was going to be, what platforms were going to be used, Tomahawks, drones, F-18s, for example, someone on that chain should have said, hey, this is not the correct platform. Let's switch over to the SIPRNet. And not a single one of them spoke up. That is egregious dereliction of duty in terms of their jobs. They needed to have spoken up, especially those who are in the intelligence community. And don't tell me that they don't know that. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, who, claims that she's a combat veteran and she has all this experience. You've got the CIA director, who at one point was also the DNI at one point in the previous administration. These people know better, and not a single one of them spoke up, which is why they're all culpable.
Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, member of the Armed Services Committee, thank you for your clarity